everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. My name is Leah, and I'm the Director of Knowledge Exchange at Women's Shelters Canada. I'm going to be hosting or moderating our webinar today, and I'm really excited to learn more about the topic, the program that we're going to hear about today. Before we jump into it, I want to start by acknowledging that I'm joining you today from the traditional unceded territories of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. And I want to acknowledge as well that I am a settler on these lands, and so I have a responsibility to continue to learn about the historical and the present impacts of settler colonialism and to support the work of reconciliation and decolonization. So welcome everyone. We would love to have a sense of who's joining us here today. There's quite a few of you with us, so do feel free to say hi in the chat. Let us know where you're joining from. We'd love to know who's here. And my colleague has also put the interpretation instructions into the chat there. So just as a final reminder here, we do have interpretation into French today. And so if you would like to listen in French, you can use the interpretation button at the bottom of your screen to do so. We do also have the live captioning feature on for those who would like the subtitles as we go. If you don't want to see them, you can hide subtitles. And so again, you would click at the bottom of your screen. There might be a button that says CC, or it might be under more. It depends on your screen, but there will be an option to hide subtitles. Now, you have probably also noticed that only myself and the presenter have our video and our mics, and that is just to make sure we have really clear audio for everyone today, as we already have, almost 100 people on here, so we want to make sure everyone can hear. But of course, that doesn't mean we don't want your participation. We definitely do. And so there are two ways you can participate throughout the session today. You can use the chat, as many of you are already doing, to say hello or to comment, to share your thoughts as we go through. And if you have any technical issues, let us know in the chat and we'll do what we can about that. If you have a question for our presenter today, please feel free to put that in the Q&A box. So that will be right beside your chat. It's specifically for questions. And if you put your questions there instead of the chat, it just helps us keep track. It means we can get through way more of your questions at the end. So please do use the Q&A. Yeah, so as you all know, today's webinar is about Rowan House Society's Safe at Home program, which is an alternative approach to serving families experiencing domestic violence. And to tell us more about this, we are hearing today from Nara Fedozzi, the program director with the Safe at Home program. Nara is a registered social worker with an extensive background in community services and program development. She's very passionate about social justice, advocacy, and challenging stereotypes. And she has over 15 years of progressive experience in various areas such as government, health, nonprofit settings, housing, social service supports, and domestic violence, of course. So welcome, Nara.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I was a little bit distracted by the chat and just checking where people are from. So amazing. People all over Canada. I'm so glad.
Yeah.
So glad we're able to make it, and so excited to have this chat with you and present Safe at Home.
For sure. Yeah, and we're happy to have you. So just before I pass it over to you for your presentation, we do have a quick little poll that I'm just going to put up on the screen here for everyone. So that should pop up now on your screen. And we just want to have a sense of who's in the room here with us. And so, let us know what region of the country you're from. And then what kind of program do you work with? Are you at a shelter for victims of violence, a non-residential program for victims or survivors of violence? Do you work with abusers in a residential or a non-residential setting, with children, or something else? I'm sure that's not an exhaustive list. So you can select other, and if you want to, you're welcome to say in the chat what the other is. So I'm going to give folks another few seconds to participate there. And we've also put in the chat, if you've already completed the poll, a little question in the chat there. What are you hoping to get out of this webinar? We'd love to have a sense of what brought you here and what you're interested in knowing more about. So feel free to let us know that in the chat as well. All right, so I'm gonna end the poll here, and I will share those results so we can all see. So yeah, so we have great representation across the country here. We've got lots of folks from BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, some Ontario folks, people from Quebec, the Atlantic region. So we really are going all across the country today, which is really cool. And most folks, 66% work at emergency shelters for victims or survivors of violence, and another kind of chunk work at second stage shelters or longer term shelters, and then some who work with non-residential programs, who work with children, and some others. So do let us know what that is in the chat. Perfect. So with that, I will pass it over to you, Nara, for your presentation, and I'll bring up the PowerPoint here as well.
Awesome. Sounds great. Oh, I'm flattered to have all of you here and having this opportunity again. Just gonna wait. Am I gonna see the PowerPoint? I should be seeing. I'm seeing you still. Yes. Awesome.
Sorry, I'm just going to put it into presentation mode, but feel free to get started. Sorry.
No problem. Sounds good. And again, everybody, my name is Nara Fedozzi. I am the program director for Safe at Home, and I have been part of this project for almost a year now. This project, as Leah was saying, is led by Rowan House. If you could please pass to the next one. Next slide, please. So we are led by our organization called Rowan House here in Alberta. Is located in High River, the Rowan House. The program though is located in Claresholm, our shelter, our facility here. And Rowan House is an organization that offers a range of programs and supports for families dealing with domestic violence. So what we are hoping to do with Rowan House is to end the cycle of abuse. And we have a variety of programs that we hope to help us in this mission. So part of the programs that we have with Rowan House, we do offer an emergency shelter for women and children fleeing from domestic violence. We do have a prevention team as well, working with community, with schools as well, really providing that education piece so people can kind of understand the signs and red flags in terms of domestic abuse, and they can learn about some resources as well. We have another program that is called Outreach. So they, similar to the shelter, they provide a range of services and support for women and children, and as well men. Within the outreach team, we can extend that to men as well. Individuals who are fleeing from domestic abuse. So that includes safety checks, includes case management, so system navigation, advocacy, also that education perspective when it comes to domestic violence, so people can understand domestic violence, the cycle of abuse, the types of abuse, they can recognize that and protect themselves and work on safety plans, all that kind of stuff as well. And we have Safe at Home, which I'm going to be presenting today. Yes, if you can move to the next one, thank you. So to start off, I just want to talk a little bit about the issue of domestic violence, domestic abuse in Canada. So here in Canada, it would tell us that in average, every a woman is killed by their intimate partner every 6 days. Which is, this number may be high. So stats, when you look at stats, they are usually a couple of years behind. Here in Canada, we spend an average of 7.4 billion a year in the issue of domestic violence. That include emergency services, prevention, shelters, those things. Again, this number may be high at this point. And this project, Safe at Home, has opened its doors March 2021. So the stats that I have here reported within our area from RCMP, we have a number of cases of 2,400 cases actually reported within the Southern Alberta in cases of domestic violence. Again, this number may be higher. A lot of cases, as you may know, are not even reported for different reasons. Sometimes people are afraid of going, of reporting. Sometimes there is shame. Sometimes there is many reasons why people don't seek out for support or they don't report. And so that's a high number still. And just from March 2021 up to September 2021. So it's quite a bit. Next one, please. So yeah, so what's Safe at Home? Safe at Home, it's a pilot project, a 4-year pilot project. It's funded by WAGE, Women and Gender Equality. And it's designed, as you were saying, it's designed to provide an alternate approach to families dealing with domestic violence. We are located in Claire's Home, and it is the first of its kind in a rural setting in Canada. So we had a similar program years ago, beginning of the 90s, I believe, in Edmonton, and it has ended because I believe was funding constraints. There is a similar project happening now in Australia, so there was a lot of inspiration on the project as well, and it's being very successful. Next one, please. So here we are talking about change, and I want to talk a little bit of why the organization has approached this model. So Safe at Home, the idea of Safe at Home is really providing an opportunity for those who have been experiencing abuse to stay safe at home. So we are really looking to address the root cause of the problem by providing a range of services, supports, including transitional housing to those who have a history of perpetrating abuse or unhealthy behavior towards their partner. So we can alleviate some of the pressure that always has been the person experiencing abuse. They want to leave the house. They want to look for resources. They want to learn about the issue. And by doing that, that's really an important piece of the work that we need to do. But we are not addressing the issue of the domestic violence when you are not focusing on the root cause. By providing an opportunity, a place for the person who has a history of perpetrating abuse, a safe space that they can stay, so they can remove themselves from a very volatile situation, and they can focus on acquiring some of the skills and tools to self-intervene to end the cycle, then we can think about a change on a larger perspective that way. So really what Safe at Home is about is really providing the individuals with that history of abuse an opportunity to make a positive change if they are ready to take that step. If you can move to the next one, please. So there are many reasons why people may perpetrate abuse. Our experience here is always go back to there is often relation to intergenerational trauma. So a lot of the clients here, they share experiences that they have had in the past or they are having. They may have grown up in a family that violence was part of their household, so they see that as a normalized thing. It's a normal process, so they kind of replicate some of those unhealthy behavior because that's how those are some of the things that they grew up. That was the environment that they grew up in, and they kind of learned those behaviors. Some people may know that it's acceptable to treat people that way. Sometimes it's a matter of they have limited problem-solving skills as well. And those are things that we would offer throughout the program as well here. We talk about respect, we talk about responsibility, we talk about recognizing different aspects of what is healthy, what is unhealthy, and what is abusive. So we really focus on that really clear picture so people can start thinking and reflecting about their own behavior and looking at making those positive changes in a sometimes in a kind of a harm reduction approach, in a sense like let's take one step at a time and moving forward towards healthier behavior. Next one. So here we talk a little bit about some of the myths that are often associated with domestic abuse. So oftentimes you hear that domestic violence is a loss of control. Oftentimes you have referrals that are clients that are looking specifically for anger management programs or courses, and they have been told by a lawyer or by a judge, by folks from the legal system, and sometimes in some cases anger management may be appropriate at some point, not at the beginning, because if you don't set the foundation with those clients around domestic violence, it can actually escalate some of those behaviors because it doesn't take into account the safety aspect of the partner. So domestic abuse, when you say domestic violence and abuse is a loss of control, it takes away the sense that domestic violence actually, it's about gaining control over your partner. Is oftentimes the individual who has been perpetrating abuse is threatened by something. They are threatened by, they have the perspective that their reputation is at risk, or they are losing control over something and they wanted to regain that control. So it's about power and control over the intimate partner that way. When we talk about he's not that sort of man, oftentimes you have kind of a picture of how an abusive person might look like, and there is no face. Somebody who perpetrates abuse, it can be somebody really close to us, it can be somebody from our family, it can be really close to us, and it happens behind doors most of the time. So the person may be a really good influence, have really good relationship, maybe somebody of a huge influence within community, and some people may not even think about that person that way at all. So there is no specific way or face that somebody's gonna look like by perpetrating abuse. It can be perpetrated by anybody. Poor communication skills. So again, so you may have somebody who is really well spoken, with a really good job, high paying job, and be presenting themselves or really influential within the community that they have, and still behind doors, it's happening. They're using abuse to gain that power and control over the intimate partner. It's a relationship issue. It's not. So every relationship from time to time, you're gonna have issues. It's about how you deal with those issues. So it's not a relationship issue. It's how you are reacting to things that happen in every relationship, or most relationships from time to time. Your response to things. Individuals perpetrating abuse are violent in all their relationships. Again, so that's a myth. That's a big one. So sometimes people are, so you can never think that the person may be perpetrating abuse behind doors at all, because they are very gentle. They're very they empathize with other people outside of their household, and they present really well. So you can never imagine that the person is struggling behind doors. And the other one that I put in here, which is very common, alcohol and drugs cause abusive behavior. They can be an escalator. They can escalate behavior, but they are not cause. So which means often we think that people who are using drugs, they would be abusive, and there are many people who have issues with drugs misuse or alcohol misuse, and they are not abusive at all. So that's another need. Next one, please. Contributing factors that I put it in here. So again, substance abuse, it can escalate behavior. It's not a cause, but it can escalate behavior. Mental illness, again, so folks, I always like to be very careful about this. I'm very passionate about mental health. And I think a lot of times people think somebody with a mental health disorder or a mental health problem, they are a danger. And that's not the case most of the times. If the person, a lot of people with mental health problems and issues, they can cope and they can function really well. So part of our assessment tools that we have here, we do assess a history of substance use, history of mental illness, and as long as they are stable enough to engage in the program, we can definitely support here. And we are looking also in making connections, so they are accessing supports in communities as well, so they have proper assistance and they are thriving in the program. And some of the things that we are going over here, they can it's a topic that can be a trigger for many folks. So it's important that they are accessing proper supports throughout their stay and afterwards as well, so it's successful. Lack of consequences, it's another contributing factor. So if the person with a history of abusive behavior or violent behavior, nothing happens to them, if they are not losing anything, and if they are getting what they want with that, they are going to continue to perpetrate the abuse. And oftentimes, if the person, especially when the person has a big influence in a community or whatever settings that they are part of, if there is no consequences, why do I need to bother changing anyways? And do I even see the potential need for change? And victim blaming, it's always a response. My partner was the one who initiated this. I'm just responding to this. So it's always putting, it's something that it's very common, always putting on the partner. And we only have control over our behavior. We can have conversations, we can teach skills about how we react to some of those things. And again, so just going back to the conversation we were having just a bit earlier, every relationship has issues. Every relationship from time to time, we're going to face some challenges, and how we deal with those things, that's what makes the difference. And next one, please. So who are our clients here? So the program, we are able to provide services and supports here at the house to clients who fit within the low to mid risk at this point. And the reason for that at this point is because the way we're staffed based on funding. So we don't offer 24/7. We are not a 24/7 staff facility. We do have staff here every day a week, but it's within 10 hours a day, usually 10 to 12 hours a day that we have here. So we need to make sure it's safe for other clients who are staying at the house, as well as for staff, for us to manage what's happening here at the house. So it's a voluntary program. So it can be referred by a judge, it can be referred by probation officers, it can be referred by Child and Family Services, police, RCMP. We have been working with all those parties in community and enhancing our relationship with them. But that person needs to have a sense that they are dealing with a problem, and they need to be willing to make a positive change, accept help in that regards. They are living independently, and they have a history of abusive patterns towards their intimate partner. And again, looking for ways to accept help and develop healthier behavior, relationship practices, and communication as well. So some clients, they may be still with their partner, and they may be coming to the program. So they don't need to be homeless to come to our transitional housing. In many cases, actually, they are still with the partner. And in many cases, they have heard about the program through the partner, and they're really wanting to make a positive change so they can go back to the family and make things work for everybody. So in some cases, if it is safe to do so, they're working and developing some of those skills towards healthier relationship and going back to the family. In some other cases, we have seen clients moving on. They already are out of a relationship at the time that they come. In some other cases, they decide, or the partner decide, or they themselves decide that that relationship is not working anymore. So they still wanted to develop some of those skills for future relationships to be healthy. Next one, please. So admission requirements. So what we have so far, it's open to men. Again, so we do know that abuse can be perpetrated by folks of any gender, any race, anything at all. So it's the way we are funded at this point, and it's based on statistics. Still at this point, the majority of cases that have been reported, abuse has been majorly experienced by women, and in most cases perpetrated by men. So the program is open to men who are 18 plus and have been involved in a domestic abuse incident. Going back to that discussion about physical and mental health, some of the things that we brought up during the program here can be a trigger for some. So we want to make sure that when clients come to the program, it's going to be a successful path for them, and they're going to take the most advantageous, beneficial. They're going to take the most of the program at the time that they come. So as part of our intake, as I said, there is a few assessment tools that we use. And part of that is for us to assess the level of risk of the individual. So it needs to fit within that low to moderate risk. We use some assessment tools to assess where they're at, if there's a history of mental health, if there's a history of substance use, and if that's the case, are they stable? And if they're stable, or some of the coping mechanisms, or some of the things that they use to ensure that they are stable. If we determine through the intake process that that person may need some additional supports that we can offer through the program and through some of the connections that we have in community with other programs, we may make some recommendations for that to, let's say, if we feel that the person can benefit from a detox treatment before coming to the program, we can make some recommendations or alternate programs that they can use before, they can access before coming to the program. It's not to screen people out of the program in any ways, it's just to make sure it's the right time for them to come and they're going to take the most of it. The program here, one of the things that we are aware of also, a lot of folks, for example, somebody who has been in prison, alcohol and drugs may be a coping mechanisms for a lot of folks. So that can be a challenge for some. The fact that the residential setting that we have here is a drug and alcohol-free environment. The organization has made this decision about this because, again, so it doesn't cause unhealthy behavior or abusive behavior, but it can escalate behavior, which can escalate risk. So we are being mindful of that, and we need to be cautious on how we provide this program in a safe way for clients, and also we keep our staff safe as well. So at this point, we have made that decision to be drug and alcohol free. Next one, please. Sorry, I'm just also referring to my notes here just to make sure I don't miss anything. So how it works, it operates within a mixed setting of transitional housing and transitional housing. So the program is divided in 3 different phases. So the first phase of our program, it's a minimum of 4 weeks where clients can come to the program. They would have access to psychoeducation sessions, and they would have access to our case management programming as well. And through case management, we would starting off through that intake assessment, we go over the application, every information that we have in the application, and also the assessment, the answers that we get from our assessment tools as well to start that case management portion. So we identify with the client through a strength-based approach what some of the needs might be, and then we start making those recommendations and connections with community services as well. That can include things such as, so for example, if that person is in a transition phase, if they're looking to move into a different house, looking at a future relationship, or they are hoping to stay by themselves, but they are in that transition phase that where they left the house. We may be working with them and making sure that they are finding long-term housing or permanent housing. In some cases, they may or may not have income. So if that's the case, we are going to take a look to see what they're eligible for, and help them navigate the system as well. And in some cases, making those advocacy pieces as well to support that system navigation. It could be if the person has a history of mental health problems, if the person has substance misuse issues as well. We can make connections with community resources as well that are appropriate to whatever the needs that they may have. If it's employment, do they need to access to advance their education in some ways? Is there specific trainings depending on the goal? So we work with them in a goal setting perspective, again, through a non-judgmental and strength-based perspective. So we are kind of looking at the whole. So we work in providing the education regarding domestic abuse, but we are looking at what are some other things that may be escalating the issue some way. So we provide them with those supports as well. And the other thing that it's important to say, we work very closely with our outreach team. So while we are providing all those services and supports to the individual with a history of using abuse towards their partner, every client who comes to our program, they're required to sign consent and give us contact information for the partner. And what we do with that, we share the information with the outreach team. So they are giving us consent to contact the partner, and we do the safety checks with the partner. And the outreach team also provides them with a range of services and supports, which include the education, so they can understand cycle of abuse, power and control, all those things. They are very, the content that we address here at Safe at Home, outreach is also addressing with the impacted family. So if the family at some point, they decide to go back to reconcile, or they are still together, they can use some of those communication skills, or they can use some of the education that they have acquired, some of those skills that they have acquired throughout the program to better communicate the needs, to address some of the safety concerns that they have, and for them and for children as well. Next one, please. So as I said, we are divided in 3 different phases. The phase 1 is a minimum of 4 weeks in our transitional housing. Again, so the person coming to the house, they don't need to be homeless. They in a lot of cases here, they actually had a house and they came to the program, and it's not a lockdown facility. They are still, again, independent, and some of the clients are working. So they go to work during the day and they come back, or whatever schedule look like for the individual. They go for their appointments, and they are here for the other part of the day, where they are working really hard in developing some of those skills towards healthier relationship. So we have 8 modules of psychoeducations that we cover in the first phase of our program. So it can be quite intensive. It's quite a fast pace. So the modules that we cover in phase 1, definitions of abuse, we talk about power and control will, self-intervention using the control log, cycle of abuse, destructive beliefs about manhood, owning up that you have a problem, thinking errors, and domestic violence and substance abuse. So we really focus on, throughout the program, we really focus the psychosocial education in taking accountability, in really recognizing, yes, this is a problem, and also thinking about how did I get here? Not from a judgmental approach, but like reflecting on how did you start some of those behaviors? Can you start thinking and reflecting some of those triggers, and how can we start a different and healthier pattern in terms of how you respond to some of the issues that you're dealing with at that time. And then phase 2 of our program is it's 10 weeks long. At that point, the clients are usually back in community. So the phase 1 of our program, it's a minimum of 4 weeks. But if that client is in a transition phase, if you're looking for long-term housing and permanent housing, we know that sometimes it can take a while. So if that's the case, if the client is engaging the program and making positive changes, they are really working hard, we can look at extending their stay here. But usually on phase 2, they're back in community. Either they have gone back to the family, or they have moved on into a different house or a different setting. That way, we continue to provide the weekly group psychoeducation sessions. In that phase, the sessions that we expand on the foundation that we have cover on the first phase of the program, and topics that we will cover will be things like healthy versus unhealthy relationship, intensity versus independence, disrespect versus loyalty, control versus equity, isolation versus trust, obsession versus a comfortable place, guilt versus taking responsibility, put downs versus respect, anger versus communication, and transition rights. So it's, again, expanding on that foundation that we set on the first phase of the program, and really giving them that visual of what is healthy, what is unhealthy, and how we are going to that abusive pattern as well, and how do we move towards the healthy behavior as well. So just really gaining some of those tools and skills that way. And the third phase of our program is the remaining 8 months. So the total of the program is up to a year. So that's quite unique about our program as well. So how we do this, we have that monthly connect with the individual, and we can cover things such as life skills, that case management, revisit some of the goal setting. And also it's an opportunity for us to connect with the client and see how they're applying those skills that they have acquired in the first 2 phases of the program, and how well that's working. And if it's not working, what are some room for improvement, so we can work with them on revisiting some of those things with them and thinking about some strategies that way as well. Next one, please. And then here, this slide here, just talk a little bit more some of the things that we do we offer to clients here. So we focus our services in a solution-focused, trauma-informed support related to domestic abuse. So talk a little bit about this, the case management client-centered goal setting. So it's really based on the individual needs of each client. So it's strengths-based, non-judgmental again. Risk and needs assessment. So it goes back. So we have that during the intake phase, but we are always reassessing risk and the needs of each client. So we are revisiting that throughout their stay within the program. Psychoeducation sessions on healthy relationships, life skills as well. So a lot of clients come to the house and they may or may not have those life skills. They may not know how to do groceries. They may not know how to cook, those kind of things. They may have relied on some other people for that previously. And those are some of the things that we can support them with as well. Referrals, advocacy, the system navigation, all that kind of stuff we also offer here. And then the last 3 slides, the next 3 slides, I just included here some of the feedback from clients that have come to the program. We have more clients and we have some more feedback. I just included here 3, just so you see. I think when I'm doing this kind of presentation, people often ask about what is the feedback from the clients? How are they taking this? Are they actually looking at taking responsibility? Are they seeing this as a positive opportunity for them? And it has been really positive for clients. So this one, he says, I was surprised. I was going there to see what it was like, and I did not really think there was something new to learn. And that has been quite a bit of the experience that we have experienced with clients coming to the program. Most clients would come to the program when they start going through phase 1. Even the body language, they are really closed off and kind of, I have an idea, there is a problem there, but do I really need to be here? Can I just deal with whatever at home? And, not necessarily knowing exactly what they're going to take from the program. And sometimes also, but in a lot of cases, they have learned about the program through the partner, as I said, or they have been highly recommended by a judge or by the lawyer or by a probation officer to be here. So they are here, they have a sense there is a problem, not necessarily they don't have a sense of the extent of the problem and how it's affecting them and the family as well. So when they start going through the phases of the program and they start realize, oh yeah, I check all those boxes here and it's really affecting me this way and my family this way, and I have experienced this before, then they start reflecting on some of those things. They start testing out some of the tools that we talk about during the program, and it makes a difference. So it's really cool to see when there is that aha moment for clients and they really start making those positive changes. So it's really cool. So next slide. It really help connect with other men with similar issue, then giving more advice. So it's also another common thing that we see, clients really looking at others who are experiencing the same, so they don't feel isolated. They feel this is not just them. This is a problem, and there are resources available to support. So addressing the root causes, addressing some of those triggers that they have experienced in the past, and they didn't realize they were triggers. They didn't realize necessarily that were some of those behaviors were unhealthy or even violent at some point. There was a talk about a situation. My exact situation was was happening with my wife. It became very emotional. The counselor said, we can talk about this. It was awesome that she was willing to talk about stuff. It was easier to talk one-on-one, to show emotion. So this is something that is really big. So when you're thinking about men, and usually men, when their experience, even when they are a child, men cannot cry, men cannot show emotion, and we cannot talk about those things. So not necessarily, again, oftentimes men don't have the skills to problem solve things that are related to emotion, to relationship, because they didn't have the opportunity even to talk about those things in the past. So many clients would tell us that this is the first time that they have an opportunity, a safe place to stay, but also to really open up about those things without being judged, really listening to understand, listening to sharing experience one another, and really learn from this group. One of the things that I forgot to say is that we clients can come to the program at any point in time, and this is so interesting. I agree. They can come at any point in time, so they don't need to wait until one cycle of the group is finished for them to start. They can come at that point, and then as long as they are finishing all modules of the groups, if you have vacancy at the point, they can start at any point in time, and which is interesting to see, because when clients are in a later phase of the program, they're opening up more, they're feeling more comfortable, and that encourages others to speak up as well. So they see that kind of as a mentor opportunity as well. In many cases, they can really see themselves in some of the situations that they have shared with other clients. And the last slide is just our contact information. We do have a page on Facebook. We have a page on Instagram as well. We have our contact information for the program. So if you, I'll try my best to answer some of your questions here. If you have follow-up questions afterwards, feel free to shout out to us, and I'll be sure to connect with you and follow up with whatever questions you may have. And thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was such an interesting presentation, and lots of folks in the chat and elsewhere saying that it was really interesting as well. So we do have quite a few questions. So maybe I'll jump right into those. So one question is sort of wondering if there's any harm reduction element within the program. So since it's drug and alcohol free, is there that consideration? Are there any thoughts about how that might change in the future? If participants are found to be using substances, do they have to leave the program? So just more about that.
Yeah, so if they are found using in the program while they are in the house, they may be putting their housing in jeopardy for sure. And it goes back to the safety aspect. That's why the organization has made this decision at this point. If we were, there is definitely that consideration. If you were to move into a more harm reduction when it comes to substance use, our staffing model would need to look very different from what we have today. So we would have to adapt to a whole other different model. So at this point, we cannot accommodate this, but we are aware this is something that we may need, we need to deal with. This is a reality, so we can't close our eyes to it. It's just that the way we are established right now, we can't handle that at this point, unfortunately.
Thank you. And so there's a few questions as well, wondering how long has this program been going on, and do you have any sense so far on the outcomes or recidivism among the men who've participated?
Right. So we are still very new. So we opened our doors end of March last year, beginning of April. So the first 2 years and so of the program, they were the developed phases of the program. So it took a little bit longer to open the doors for a few things. One of them being, dealing with COVID, having to readapt, those kind of stuff as well. In terms of data, we are still collecting data. I think it's still early for us to share lots in terms of data. A lot of clients who come to the program, they may not even be going through the legal system. So we are definitely paying attention on the issue happening again. But in some cases, there was no legal records, there is no charges in place, there is nothing. It's a voluntary program. But definitely looking at some of the data, the feedback that we have been receiving from clients, again, has been extremely positive. Clients who haven't, for some clients, for some applicants, they at the beginning, they may see, why do I need to go to the house? I have my own house. And then for clients actually who come to the house, they, even those who have a house to go back to, the feedback has been, you know what, I haven't thought about this before, but it was such a great opportunity for me to remove myself from that, situation and really focus on this. It's a quiet place where I have all those resources that I didn't even know that I needed all this kind of supports, but now I see how important and how impactful it is. And they start talking to other folks. Oh, I could think about, probably 10 other friends that I have that could really benefit from this program. And I'll be talking to them. So it has been really, really cool to watch some of those changes. Similar when you're out and about talking with other organizations, having those conversations about challenging the status quo as well. So why we're doing this? So a lot of people would ask us, why are you even offering supports to folks who are using abuse? Why you're not focusing on the person who is experiencing abuse? And we are offering those supports as well. We are working on prevention as well, which is another very important fact that another strategy that we need to take into account. Early intervention, prevention, they are key to the work that we are doing. But again, so providing this kind of program and supports to those using violence and abuse, me coming from the human services field, I am a believer that people can change. And it's coming through that perspective, trusting people can change, and the errors and the mistakes that people have made in life don't necessarily define them. It's part of the experiences that they had. It doesn't define them as an individual. We may have some people who are really close to us and who is struggling, and they don't have the tools and skills to deal with those. And if they had access to the right supports and services, they would make different choices. And that's exactly what we are trying to do here.
Great, thank you. So there's a few questions as well about your capacity. So how many folks can you take into the residential portion at a time? Are you generally full? And is there sort of a continuous intake, or do you take folks in like cohorts?
Continuous intake, it's first come, first serve. Of course, if you have 2 applications at the same time, we'll have 1 vacancy. We'll definitely look into like, who do we prioritize, and that will go back based on risk and a few considerations that we'll make. Risk for the family as entirely, and the benefits that we bring to the individual and to the family. We have the capacity to house 2 clients at a time in our transitional housing. We do have we came up with an emergency bed. We have an unfinished basement where we set up a bedroom, sort of. Not ideal, but it was an urgent situation at the time. We got a referral from a police officer at the time, and this gentleman was leaving his truck. So staying in a basement with access to, it's a safe space to stay, access to the amenities within the house, and access to all the programs. Here, it was way better situation that he was having at the time. So we came up with that. So we can technically house up to 3 clients at a time. We don't usually have a wait list. We don't often have a wait list. Currently, we do have vacancy at the house. So if you have clients to refer to us, feel free to give us a shout. Always, I say, if you're not sure if this program would be a fit for the needs of the individual, give us a call. We are always happy to brainstorm some ideas or what might be the best benefit for the particular family.
And I'm glad you said that, because that speaks to another comment that's come in. A lot of folks saying they wish that this was the case across Canada, or that there were other programs like this, and how far away can they refer from? So, so I think you just spoke to that.
Yeah, so the focus of this program is within the rural area here, Southern Alberta. So it's in between Calgary and Lethbridge. However, if we don't have a wait list, if you have vacancy and we don't have a wait list within our program from clients within our area, we take clients from other areas as well. The other thing that I wanted to mention, because just related to that comment, that I wish that we had this kind of program in other areas of Canada. So super exciting. Part of this pilot project, one of the agreements that we have done with our funder, with Wage, is that at the end of this pilot project, which is going to be mid next year, we are going to be producing a blueprint, which means we are going to be documenting everything that we have done and we have learned, and also our recommendations for future. So folks, organizations across Canada who are looking to replicate something similar in future, they can look that as a kind of a guiding tool, so they don't have to start from scratch. They don't have to go through the same mistakes that we have, and they can, use that as a guiding tool to implement something similar. And I can tell you, we have learned so much already, and I'm sure you're going to learn some more, quite a bit. And I'm very excited to share some of our learnings and recommendations for other organizations. There is quite a bit of organizations actually already contacting us, so we are in touch with them. And hopefully mid of next year, we can revisit some of those conversations again.
Great. So there are probably more questions than we can get to in the minute or two we have left. So I'm going to take note of the ones we didn't get to and maybe share them with you by email, Nara, and we can maybe share some answers afterwards when I send the recording to folks. But maybe just as a last question altogether here in the last minute, do you have any feedback from the survivors or the families whose partners have been in the program? So what has that feedback been like from the families?
Yes, we are tracking data on that regards as well. We had very few cases where the partner didn't feel safe to stay at home, so they have moved with the supports and safety checks and all the supports from the wonderful outreach team that we have here. It's hard to say, though, at this point, if some of that unsafe feeling it was based on previous really bad experiences that they had. So those are some of the things that we are looking into when you're assessing that as well. So we are looking into those things. So when we have the blueprint, you're going to know more about that. And most of the cases that we are seeing a lot of feeling that the services has been really good, that it allows them to have more conversations when they reconcile, at the point that they reconcile. Some cases they are talking how that it's impacting the relationship with them, but also with the children as well, the changes that it has made that way. So it also has been positive, and they are being left with, when they leave, well, actually, it's a longer term program as well, the connection with outreach. Also with a sense of feeling safer overall, and feeling that they know how to recognize the signs and how to deal with some of those things in future. How to handle those conversations, knowing about resources as well in general, not just in terms of domestic violence, but other resources that they may be struggling for, other areas that they may be struggling with as well. So really positive. Look at stats, there is a high incidence of domestic violence cases within Indigenous communities. So we are looking at having formal partnerships with an Indigenous community here as well, and really looking at who needs to be on the table, how do you address this, and really looking at taking it to the next level and really taking a really close look at what is the data telling us, what is the focus, where do we need to, what is our priority, and how do we expand this. So it has been a really interesting, really cool learning process for us, and I'm very excited to share more with you when we have our blueprint ready to go.
Awesome. Thank you. And like I said, we're not going to get to all of these questions today. So what I'm going to do is take note of those, and we'll send some more information by email after this session, along with the recording and the PowerPoints and all of that kind of stuff. I think, Nara, thank you so much for this presentation. Obviously, there's a lot of interest and a lot of questions, desire for more information, which I think is a great sign of how engaging your presentation has been. So thank you so much for this. And thanks to everyone who participated, who's asked those questions, made it a really interesting conversation. And thanks as well to my colleague for tech support, to the interpreter, and to everyone who has helped make this possible today. So there's a feedback survey that's been shared in the chat. And when we leave the webinar, it'll also be on your screen if you want to let us know how we can improve, what else you're interested in knowing in the future. So thank you, Nara, and thanks to everyone else as well. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.